Nerdiest Prime.
Hi, welcome to Nerdiest Prime, where we are reviewing every episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. We are in Season 2, Episode 4, and Alan, please regale us with the title of this episode.
Among the Lotus Eaters.
I knew Alan would know. Alan always knows. I am about to start the review, and then I realized I do not remember the name of the episode, except for last
Which
week.
apparently is some sort of reference to Homer's Odyssey. I had to look it up. I'm like, what's the deal with this? Yes.
Yep.
About eating flowers and forgetting your troubles.
Let's start with our first impressions. I want to hear from Jenny first.
Oh, me again. This felt very TOS to me. And as a not like TOS expert, I may be wrong about that, but it felt like a throwback. Like I really liked the vibe of this episode in that respect.
Namir.
Yeah, I agree. I got a really good kind of like Star Trek-y sort of feel from it. All the things that normally bother me about Strange New Worlds were still there, but at least it was like a good, solid kind of episode. I actually like Ortegas. I thought she's kind of underrated, and she got to kind of shine a bit during this episode. So I liked it. I did.
I agree with Jenny. This had very strong TOS vibes, from like the set design to just the story, the acting. I almost felt like the AR wall was, it felt a little cheapish. Like, I don't know if that's the word I'm looking for, but it felt like a TOS episode. Like, it's like almost like it's like foam rocks again and all. So I had fun with it. It felt a little over long, at an hour long. I feel like they could have trimmed it a bit. Yeah, it could have been like 15 minutes shorter. But it felt like classic Star Trek. So it was a good time.
I also like this episode. I'm going to get into more, but it kept going like, it's a 10, it's a 6, it's a 10, it's a 6. And also felt that not only had like, shades of TOS. We should mention that it's kind of like a sequel to the pilot episode of the original series. And also there was some TNG things going on in there that I'll talk about. And also it had some very solid Strange New Worlds kind of vibe going on. So it was like, it's a little tapas, a little, you go to the Spanish restaurant, get a little this, little that, little this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, here we go with the food.
So, I guess let's talk about the overall plot. So the premise of the episode is that it's a sequel to The Cage, the pilot from the original series, where they've gone to Rigel 7. They're coming back from that mission. People have died, and then you get the actual story of The Cage, where they go to Talos 4?
What?
Talos 2? What's the name of the planet they go to in The Cage?
It's 4, isn't it? Talos 4?
It is Talos 4, but what
Yeah.
So in this episode we get to see like them going back to the planet Rigel 7, that they had that big thing happen. So how do we feel about that as a premise? Let's start with Alan.
Yeah, I like that this was a prequel to The Cage. I always enjoyed The Cage. I feel like it's a shame that it never got to be broadcast in the 60s, of the Meet Clip show for the original series. Yeah, and it was cool that the producers and writers went back to the origins of the show and elaborated on something. And I never even realized when I was watching The Cage over so many years that there was like visual references to what had just previously happened. I mean, I know they talk about it, but I never noticed until recently. Crew members were bandaged up and people were injured, and it was kind of like a lived-in environment, which is kind of odd for 60s storytelling, especially for a pilot episode. That's like, oh, something just happened and we're not showing it, but we're just kind of giving you some hints of what happened, and now they elaborate on that, and I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched The Cage, so I had the reference, which was very nice. So I like understood the the connections. I like that they tied it in. I like that they're doing that. I like that they're, you know, taking opportunities to, you know, take those references from TOS without it being too kind of ham-fisted. Like when they're doing it, it makes sense for the most part, I feel. Yeah, and I liked the update on the palace thing, you know? I mean the TOS version is classic because I mean it was in the credits for however long. I think forever basically. But it yeah, I liked it. And I liked your point about the AR wall. It's like it was doing a lot of heavy lifting in this episode and maybe too much, but in a way that made sense for the throwbackiness of it.
All right.
Yeah.
Namir.
You know, I'm going to be honest here. I missed the connection to the cage completely. How is this connected to the cage? Somebody better explain this to me because I have no idea.
Well, in
Really?
the cage,
The beginning of the cage.
The first scene is basically Captain Pike being like, being a captain sucks and I hate this job and I think I should quit and go and become a slave trader, a Ryan slave trader, and have sex with green women. Essentially, is what he's saying.
Okay.
And that's happened because he just came from a planet, Rigel 7, which is a planet in this episode.
Oh, okay.
That people got killed, people got killed, were wounded. So you see people kind of in the background of those scenes where they're bandaged up and this that is going on. So they're responding to a distress call to go to Talos 4, and they go, nah. He's like, I don't want to go there. We just come from this big fiasco, and so now we're going back.
Okay, yeah, okay. I remember that because I'm like, isn't this one, you know, that episode where they had the big-headed aliens that created illusions? I was like, there's no illusions in this episode, but I understand now. You know, now that you've told me that, I kind of like it a little bit less. Like and oddly, and I know.
But let's be honest. Like, how much did you like it to begin with?
I liked it. I liked it because I thought they were doing something brand new that was like, okay, this is like Strange New Worlds. It's a self-contained episode. They're not doing, but they're not because they're like, let's explain this little thing that happened in the cage, which they don't need to do. I mean, they could have named that.
None of the stuff that happened in this episode was even alluded to. Like, in the original,
I know,
like it was just basically there. We went on a mission. It went sideways, and now we're on our way to Vega Colony to take care of our sick and injured.
I know, but why do it? Why do it?
This is all new stuff.
But I know, but so why do it?
Why not?
I don't know. It just makes it feel more connected. It's nice to have a nice,
I don't know.
Connected
I think it's
web of events and I don't know. I like it when the universe feels lived in and you know events connect each other. It's like life.
I don't know. I feel like it's pandering, and that annoys me. I do not like to be pandered to, and
I don't feel it's pandering.
I just.
It's a love letter to the forgotten crew that could have been in TOS.
No, it's not. It's like, here's a little secret for everybody that knows about the episode and the original series. Here you go. You're gonna love it.
Yeah,
fans.
It's a fun Easter egg for fans. But if you didn't watch it, you would totally follow this.
Why don't we just let Namir say his thing?
Okay. If I must.
So then that's kind of one of my problems with the show is that it's not they're not trying to develop it into its own thing, right? Like they've got all these like little references to the other shows where you don't need to do that, right? Like let it sort of be what it is on its own merits. So all of these little things really bother me, right? Because it's not kind of fulfilling the premise of the show, which is they go to different planets that are brand new, that nobody else has ever been to, and they tell new stories, right? Like, you know, the last episode was not that at all. This was, until I realized that it was connected to something to the original series, and now I'm just annoyed. And so they tell us this thing, but they're not actually doing it, and I want more of that. Those are the best episodes of Strange New Worlds. I don't know why they keep doing this. God, it drives me nuts. I love the episode. I mean, I don't know.
Well, because what you're talking about is the actual premise of Star Trek, and I've noticed that it's something that I really like in Star Trek. At least in theory, I go, well, that's what I want. I want them to go to a new place every week, and it's like, what the hell is going on here every week? But Star Trek isn't that. Star Trek is only like once in a while they're doing that. But I agree with you, Namir, like that is what I find the most exciting. I think from probably a writing point of view, it's very difficult to come up with a brand new thing each week. So that's why you have like we're going back to a place we've been before, or we're bringing back a thing, and
But that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. I don't care if it's difficult. Like that's like the original series did it. How many times? So many times.
Basically, if they went to Rigel 3 instead of Rigel 7, and it was a completely different planet, and they did the same shit, you would have been fine with it.
Maybe it's possible. Honestly, it is possible. I just find it annoying. I really do.
Because they could have plunked any random planet name here, and it would have been.
But that's my point. So why not just do that?
What were you gonna say, Jenny?
Just like I get it. I totally get what you're saying. I just this is such a tiny little reference back to like everything about the planet, everything about what happens to them there. The crew member, like aside from the one crew member still being there and the fact that there had been a mission there at one point, everything else is new. So, like, I get it. I get what you're saying, but in this case, this is a pretty small throwback to, like, be this upset about me.
I am so mad about this.
I kind of get what you're saying, but in this case, I think because there was only one episode originally of Captain Pike, I like any reference to that episode. I mean, the way I see the show and what is exciting to me about Strange New Worlds is it's basically if the first pilot of Star Trek would have been greenlit, this is the show we would have got. I mean, and this type of show with these characters is what we would have got. So for them to go back, 50 years later and go, okay, that show you didn't get to see, now you get to see it. I love that. And so it's great to have that throwback to the original episode. So the plot of the story is like they go down to find out what happened to the they think that people have died down on the planet during that original mission, but now they're going back because there's been maybe some contamination. They see the Starfleet logo, but it turns out that A, there's a survivor and he's really pissed off, and B, there's a whole weird thing with memory that's going to happen. So how do we feel about that the plot of the episode would be?
In that respect, I felt it very much felt Star Trek-y, right? Like we've got our, situation on a planet. So we've got the crews separated. We've got stuff happening on the planet. We've got stuff happening on the ship. And it was, it was a sort of creative thing. Obviously in television, we've seen a lot of amnesia stories, but this was kind of a new spin on it to some degree. I mean, we've definitely seen Starfleet officers being forced to work with no memories in other situations, but I don't know. I actually really liked the twist of the ex-crew member being like the king. Yeah, I liked that because we don't see a lot of that. Like, what happens if you leave somebody behind? Do they get mad or do they, I don't know, start a whatever? I've lost my train of thought.
Okay, this is a good place for Namir to come in. Come on, Namir.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are you asking again? You're asking about the. What are you asking? The plot. Oh, right.
The whole setup. Yeah.
The whole setup. I liked it. I thought it was smart. I think I would have preferred it if the reveal for Zach was at kind of the end. That would have been a nice little twist at the end. But it was cool. I like that they did something different with it. I like the memory loss plot line. I thought that was really cool, and the way they kind of handled it was super interesting. So I didn't really have a lot of problems with everything that was on the planet. I think most of my issues um, were with the storyline that was sort of on the Enterprise. But everything on the planet was a lot of fun to watch. I think that they did a really good job. And there's a lot of Pike, so and it's always great to watch him. And there's like phaser battles, and that's everything that I watched Star Trek for was on the planet. So.
Yeah, I love a good classic science fiction premise. I feel like a lot of Star Trek, new Star Trek, it's lost that kind of sense of mystery and wonder of the universe, where usually most things now are so heavily plot driven with wars and things like that. So I like a good classic space anomaly science fiction, hard science fiction premise. I like the idea that there's a whole society basically based that have formed their existence around losing their memories and how that can be free your mind or ease your burdens, and the whole discussion around, are we better for remembering the pain of our lives, or are we freer if we don't remember the hardships we went through. So I liked all that. I like that guest character, I forget his name, Luke, I think. Luke or Luck. So yeah, I found him a good guest character. Yeah, it was very classic Trek, and I enjoyed the whole premise.
Yeah, I really like the classic Trek part of the episode. That character Luke, he was talking like TOS characters would talk in the '60s, where he had to land on a planet that Captain Kirk would land on a planet with Bones and Spock, and they would talk, and there was always somebody on the planet, and they'd be like, "It's the old ones. Oh, it's in the time before the thing, in the time before after. Oh,
Yes.
the forgotten ones." And they always talked in this very stilted, and kind of, and this is kind of how
Yep.
he was talking, and he was totally pulling it off.
I was left here by the old ones.
I think the problem for me in general with Strange New Worlds, and I'm sure Namir is going to agree with me, is that they're always trying to pack too much into the episode. And like in this case, I really did like the premise of the society, and they spent a certain amount of time on that, but not enough for me to really get like, that was really satisfying. I really got like a nice slice of that pie. And I just went, but I really like the stuff on the ship. I think it's just the third thing that was the thing too many was, oh, there is actually a crewman left alive. That was like a whole plot in itself. That could have been like a whole thing. And that's what I'm talking about. There's really three stories, and it's only an hour long. So they're trying to service. There's a crew member that's angry that got left behind. He's angry with that, and he kind of wants revenge. That is not really dealt with in a satisfactory way. You got this really cool society that, like Alan mentioned, is based around memory and the loss of memory. And then you have Ortega's back on the ship, and I loved all that stuff, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I think it's just too much in the episode. But what was there, I thought was really good.
I agree with that, and I think I had no problem with Zach, like the crewman. I thought that was a really interesting, because I wasn't expecting it, right? And normally with Strange New Worlds, like I can pretty much guess what's going to happen next, but with this, I was like, oh, that's really cool, because it was totally out of the blue, and I wish they had done a little bit more with that, like maybe talk a little bit more about how he managed to do this, like how he managed to actually become king. I think there was a lot more there. And if they had sort of gotten rid of the story of Ortegas on the ship, even though I thought she did great, I think they would have had a lot more space to actually write some of that, about this interesting society and how it kind of functions, and like classic Star Trek stuff. So yeah, I totally agree, because like they crammed in way too much, and they're not good at it. Like when the stories are much more streamlined, like and clear, like I always go back to Memento Mori, because I think that's like the best one, the best episode of Strange New Worlds. That's very clear. Like that's very, very straightforward. You know what's going to happen. There's a clear sort of conflict, and they're dealing with it in a really direct, precise way, and it's super engaging. But this was kind of a bit all over the place.
Well, why don't you jump in and talk about how you felt about the Ortegas and that sort of B plot on the ship?
I like Ortegas a lot. I've always liked her. I think she's a really, really good character because she's, like she's kind of cocky. She's different. She's funny. She's interesting. And they don't actually do a lot with her, and they haven't up till this point, other than like the occasional wisecrack and her being her. So I was super excited because I was like, oh, she's gonna get to be on the landing party, and then she's gonna really get to do something on the planet. And then they took that away from her, and they just gave her the thing that she always does, which is fly the ship. And that's basically what her entire plot line was about. She's like, I fly the ship, And they're like, yeah, no kidding. We know you fly the ship. You do it every episode. And then she's like, wait a second, what do I do again? Oh yeah, I fly the ship. And then she flies the ship. That's her entire storyline.
I actually thought that was the best part of the episode. And the idea of everybody losing the memory and also the sense of purpose. I mean, I found it confusing. I didn't really understand what the rules were of how you lose the memory and what you're losing and for how long and so on and so forth. But Ortega's plotline of being on the ship and forgetting who she is and then kind of reclaiming her purpose, plus having the computer being her guide. There was like an Obi-Wan down on the planet that was telling him the ways, and there was the Obi-Wan up on the ship, and the Obi-Wan on the ship was like the computer being like, I would tell you who you are, I'll tell you where your quarters are, and I will return purpose to your life. And her going back up, being really scared and being like a child, almost like a child, like, I'm so scared, things are hitting the ship, make it stop, and being very passive, and then going from that to being in charge of her destiny I thought such a great arc.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about Star Trek is when you've got one character just talking to the computer and figuring something out. I love that. Like, give me that in every episode. Like, I love that. I mean, don't, but you know what I mean. Yeah, and I liked that she was pissed that she didn't get to go, but in like sort of reclaiming her purpose, I think it reminded her also like why she does what she does and why what she does is actually important, and she doesn't have to necessarily go on an away mission for, to be useful or important or like, I mean, it's, it's kind of cheesy, but it's like, I get it. I get the...
Yeah.
I really felt like the message of her storyline was like, listen, you have a job. Don't try and do anything else. Just fly the ship and shut up. And I'm like, no, I want to see Ortega on the planet solving everything and saving the day.
Wearing her little hat.
She had the hat. The hat is the thing that saved everybody's memories. She would be the one that it would work because she had the hat.
Like, it would have been funny if underneath the hat was a little tinfoil.
Yeah, and it just so happened that the hat saved her brain from the radiation.
Yeah.
I mean...
there's a whole thing there, but we'll not get into it right now.
Yeah, I feel like the pilots in Star Trek, they always get a short they get the short straw, because they always get like, it seems like they throw the pilot carriage like a bone like once a season or something, like Tom Paris or Mayweather.
Mayweather never got thrown a bone. Let's just like,
there was that one episode where
where he meet his family
on the freighter.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
He had his episode. Yeah.
And even Geordi, he didn't really get any stories until he was chief engineer.
And then he got a whole episode where all he did was talk to the computer.
And let's face it, Sulu and Chekhov never got stories either in the original series. The pilots just fly the ship. They don't get meaty storylines. So yeah, but I was happy to see Ortega's get a little bit of. I mean, she did like to call this like an Ortega's episode. Is kind of still a little. shortchanged to the character because she didn't get really, you know, it was still really more of a Pike episode, I think. But she got some time to shine, so that was nice. And I liked everything that was happening on the ship too. I thought that was cool, where everybody's kind of like a zombie, where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I just know how to heal people or fix the engine, and they're all kind of like in a daze. And it's kind of creepy, and I like the vibe of that subplot. But yeah, and I also agree that the Zach storyline did not get enough development. Like, it seems like they realized he was there and they met him briefly, and then they went off and did their thing in the fields, and then they come back later and they threaten Zach's like, give us our memories, we want our memories, and you know, he didn't get a whole lot to do, even though it was quite a, you know, like Namir says, it could have been a very meaty, intriguing storyline if it was fleshed out more. But yeah, I feel like that aspect did not get enough development in this. For being an hour long, like, it's surprising, you know, because it felt like a really long episode. but yeah, they still didn't give Zach,
also, I just
Zach his
remember
due.
there was also like a fourth thread to the episode, which was Captain Pike's relationship with the other Starfleet captain.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, so they were like trying to surface a lot of things. By the way, when I said earlier that there was a TNG element to this episode, that was, to me, Ortega's relationship with the computer, because that felt very much like a TNG going like, where's my quarters, and the little lights going ding 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 ding. That's like a TNG thing. That's not a TOS thing.
I also thought about Jenny's comment last week when it said Pike would be back next week in his apron, you know, ready for us to eat out of his hand. And that's exactly the first thing we see. He's there cooking. Nice call.
And you loved it. Yeah.
I guess the resolution is that they find out. I guess is that they find out that this that it's really the asteroid field that's creating the radiation that's blocking the memories. And I kind of knew it from the beginning. I was like, well, it's obviously the broken moons, guys. Don't fly towards the broken moons. Like, that's the one thing that's weird about that planet, is that they had the two moons blow up in orbit. So if I was the Starfleet, that'd be the first thing. I've not seen Moonfall.
Oh my god!
I hear it's great though.
It is memorable.
Memorable, like the way that Battlefield Earth is memorable. So how did you guys feel about the resolution of the episode?
Yeah, again, it was more classic TOS vibes. I felt like, you know, when Pike was you know, demanding his memories back, like, it felt like a William Shatner, Captain Kirk moment.
I need my pain.
I don't want my pain taken away. I need my pain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly. He was channeling his best Shatner in that moment. I guess it was a little bit predictable, but you know, again, it felt like a warm hug, like I always say with these traditional Star Trek stories. I'm like, you know, there was no casket full of memories or anything foolish like that. It was like you say, it was the asteroid, the radiation. They were protected by some sort of alloy in the palace walls. Yeah, I guess Pike learned in this that you know what he's capable of. You know, when his the things that make him who he is, his memories, his life, his career. You know, at the base his base instincts. You know, he's capable of killing, and I guess that kind of shakes him to the core, it seems, there towards the end. So he learned a little bit about his own primal nature.
His basic instincts.
I don't want to say it felt fast, but it felt a little like considering how long the episode was, I felt like the wrap up of the episode was like just this little nugget, you know? Not a chicken nugget, just a nugget. Partly also because they still had to have the wrap up with the other captain, who I'm pretty sure still doesn't have a first name, right?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Her last name is Batel, right?
Batel, yeah. Anyway, so, you know, that's great. They were like, we're still going to do this captain love thing. Yeah, I mean, like we haven't seen a lot of them together yet, so it's sort of, I don't feel super invested in their relationship, for them to sort of, well, I don't know. I mean, that's
Well, and
That's-
it kind of feels like they're like friends with benefits is more the vibe I get. From
yeah.
They got to keep him free to have sex with like alien women when
Right.
he goes from planet to planet. Yeah, he can't be tied down.
I don't think that's his deal. Oh, he did once last season.
He did.
He did last year. Yeah,
He did.
No, but they already knew each other. It wasn't
So
like,
he tied down. He likes
That's
being tied
true.
down. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, he wasn't on
but
Space
she was like
Tinder.
a booty call though. Like he was there once, and he'd come again.
I feel like
He
they had a
probably won't go
relationship.
again now after he found out their society was so fucked up. But
They
I
might.
wonder if Starfleet captains use space condoms.
I mean,
Starfleet issue.
they just get the transporter to beam it out.
Oh,
They just have to time it exactly. Right.
exactly.
This is very uncomfortable. Why did you ask this question? The things that you guys say.
because Captain Kirk is always like getting around. I'm like, that guy has got to have some sort of space parasite. for
I
sure.
feel like they have sorted
Venereal
it. Like,
disease.
I feel like that would be the first thing that scientists would start working on. If we started going into space and men wanted to sleep with aliens, I'm pretty sure this like Starfleet Medical would be on it.
This is
Yeah.
that priority.
Yeah.
Safe sex. Not
Yeah.
not safe sex. But like, how do we get to have sex with aliens? It's not enough that we can have sex with each other. We have to spread it across the universe now.
Just little
Good thing
force
there's a lot of
field.
bipeds.
Just say no.
Force field.
You know?
I like your theory
Oh,
there
man.
in the mirrors.
You asked.
So, yeah, nobody's mentioned Voyager workforce because this is what this episode makes me.
That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I mean,
Yeah.
that was a bit different because they're basically giving him a new life, new past. These guys,
Right.
they didn't have a past, so it was a little different.
But it was like losing the memory so they can make them work essentially,
Mhm.
and and use them as a.
But they
working
gave
class.
at least they gave them a backstory, so they thought they were there of their own volition
Right.
in workforce.
Which is very similar to that Stargate episode that was also written by people who worked on Voyager, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of Stargates that are just basically Next Generation and Voyager plots.
I know. There's also a Stargate episode where the ex Air Force guy has become the king on a world.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
That part of the plot reminded me of Bread and Circuses from the original series, where they go back to the Roman planet, and it's like, oh, what's really part of what's happened is
Captain
that
Merrick.
Yeah, Captain Merrick. But also the same thing that happened on the Nazi planet. That's totally what happened on the Nazi planet. Where there was a guy there, and he contaminated and turned them into
John
Nazi
Gill.
planet. Yeah. John
I'm
Gill.
just
Look
throwing
at
it
you with your knowledge. You're an embarrassment of riches, Alan.
He's certainly part of that.
It's my one life skill. I'm not good at anything else.
Come on.
Good Star Trek.
You are
If
good
only
at
that
Star
made
Trek.
money.
I actually have one thing to say. We see the palace in the original series. It's a great palace. Why is it not the same palace in this episode? And also, why doesn't this planet look like that planet? Because that planet was cool. The TOS planet. And this planet was like a totally different
Yeah, well, that's what I really want the Kalars to be like they were in the original series. Like they were tall and they roar and they had like that big fangs. These guys would just look like they were like Robin Hood or something. Like it just looked like a bunch of soldiers from the medieval British or something with like little helmets and little vests. And I'm like, they didn't look fierce or ferocious. Like they didn't look like that intimidating like it did in the Cage. So, and that's a classic matte painting too. So I don't know why. Yeah, they should have just updated that because it's such a great matte painting.
Don't
But
you
they have
mean
to do their own
classic
thing, I
Matt-
guess.
A classic Matt Jeffries painting.
I don't think he was the one that painted it, but sure.
It's just a joke. It's just a
Matte
pun.
paint.
Oh, I get jokes.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for saving that. But also, I found that the palace, not only did it not look like the palace in the original episode, it actually looked like the library from the TNG episode Masks, the library that's inside the comet.
Oh, that is a
I'm just
deep
throwing it out
cut.
there.
Yeah.
I thought that was like they're going to reveal like this is actually the mask planet. Everyone's going to have masks.
That would have been insane.
And I'm kind of wondering if it was deliberate, like, because I mean, I felt like the AR wall was like everything had like a purple palette, and it had like these random like rocks and stuff, and everything felt like a very minimalist TOS soundstage where they had the, like the monocolored sky, and then they had some styrofoam rocks and a couple weeds, and this felt.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but it worked. I liked it. I liked the vibe, whether it was deliberate or not.
It felt deliberate.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, actually. The director of this episode is the director of the Blair Witch Project.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Eduardo Sanchez.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm saying it like he's Mexican. I don't think he's actually Mexican.
Yeah, and I just thought, yeah, like I don't know, has he done much TV?
What's
I'm
his
just
name?
I'm just
have to
curious
go on
because it really
IMDb.
did feel
I don't know.
it felt like he was going for a very like the aesthetic and the just I don't know, like even the sort of the way it was shot, like there were sort of, it was interesting. It was just interesting sort of seeing someone coming from that. I mean, obviously that was years ago, but like it's just, he's done a lot of horror.
Yeah, he's done a ton of TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh, has he?
Yeah, so he directed some episodes of Supernatural.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he directed an episode of Yellow Jackets.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he's all over the place. I think
that's
TV
cool.
is his jam now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Well,
Okay,
good
cool.
thing nobody was like standing and facing a corner. That would
I
have been
know.
terrifying.
Yes, or but there was a tent. There was a tent in this episode,
True.
and there was like old stories about
Mhm.
things that may or may not be true.
And you are in the corner.
Yeah.
I also liked Spock's reactions to Ortega's flying when he wasn't sure if she could actually handle it, and then all those little expressions like that did make me laugh when he was like he looked very concerned and scared. It's like just another little bit of emotional Spock.
Also,
I wish she
it
had
kinda-
like a joystick, you know, like a pilot stick to fly instead of like an iPad that she's flying.
I think she
Just-
should have the steering wheel
like
from
the
Knight Rider.
NX-01.
What?
Actually,
Well,
the
some-
Enterprise had one too,
and-
didn't it?
And in Knight Rider, they had a little steering wheel with little lights on it. Every
No.
time we grab the steering wheel, and do.
Yeah, but Enterprise didn't Enterprise have like an actual stick?
I think the E and the NX-01 both had joysticks, because I think they had a joystick in Insurrection, didn't they? And then of course they had a joystick in Enterprise that would
Yeah,
pop up.
it's
Mayweather
just
would
much
do
more
his thing. It was
dramatic.
one
Like,
thing
if
you got to
she's-
do.
Yeah, like if she's like flying through an asteroid field, you want to see her like do this, but she's like, you know, swiping on a touchpad.
wasn't cool.
you know?
Plotting.
It was a cool interface though. I like the
Mm.
close-ups of it. And it was like, I think that was-
I agree. I just mean for dramatic effect.
Right.
She should be. But what do I know? I don't. I'm not a pilot.
Okay, let's talk about our ratings.
I think I gave this one a 7, which is my lowest so far. Which isn't to say that I didn't like it. I just didn't like I was entertained.
Okay, I believe you. Namir.
Man, I feel like if Jenny gave it a 7, I can't give it a 7 because I didn't like it as much as her. So it's like a sliding. But I did like it, but not that much. I like 2 storylines out of 3, so I'm gonna give it a 6.5.
I'm also gonna give it a 7. Again, it's like Jenny. I still enjoyed it. It was a nice good traditional Star Trek episode. It wasn't like top shelf, but it was a perfectly fine Planet of the Week adventure romp, with nice little moral dilemma and some philosophical discussions and all that. But it did feel a little overlong, and even being overlong, it didn't service, like you say, the Zach plot line that well. So there was some missteps. So I feel like this is about a 7 for me.
Wow, you guys are a tough crowd. I like this episode. I think this is the best episode so far of this season. I'm going to give it a solid 8. A solid 8. I had a really good time watching it. There were parts of this episode, like when Ortega's was figuring out she was the pilot and she went to the ship. Parts of the figuring out the memory and people remembering their skills. There were some parts of this episode that were like 10. But I was like firing on all cylinders. It was like watching Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There were some parts of that movie that I was like, this is an amazing movie. And then other parts of the movie where I was like, man, I can go get popcorn right now, really. And so this one, yeah, it was kind of like that. So I'll give it an 8. That's halfway between 6 and 10. It's just math, guys.
What?
What?
8.
Did you just say that 8 was halfway between 6 and 7?
And 10.
What?
Is it halfway between 6 and 10?
Oh my god.
Jenny understands. He understands. Thank you, Jenny, for understanding.
You're welcome.
Lucas is just trying to
Okay.
give us something to go to the cut to the credits with, where he does something kind of dumb, and then it was like cut to the credits.
Are we still recording? Is this still part of the show?
Well, I guess not anymore. I'll just
Yeah, you
just turn it off.